5'2" volleyball player playing amongst giants at Penn State University, as a 20-year veteran teacher at a high-performing school district, as a 42-year-old American Ninja Warrior training and competing with kids half my age, as an introvert up here in front of you today, and finally, as an author who never read a single book in grade school, high school, or college. I'm here to share my story with you today because I could be that student sitting in your classroom next year. As a student growing up in rural Pennsylvania with undiagnosed dyslexia, school for me was more like an American Ninja Warrior course. I had obstacles I had to overcome every single day. From workbook pages, where I'd have to ask my friends the directions and guess my way through. From round-robin reading around the classroom where I'd have to count the number of paragraphs and try to memorize what I was to say, ultimately missing out on the whole rest of the content. It was in second grade when direct reading instruction stopped at our school, and that's probably my reading level when I graduated college. I had to navigate obstacles of anxiety, self-doubt, and shame. And it wasn't until middle school when I met my hero, Mr. Kulik. Everyone has a hero, and he was my 5th through 8th grade science teacher. But he was also my volleyball coach and my basketball coach. He was the first teacher I had who didn't use the textbook as the primary source of information. Instead, we were able to do hands-on activities with partners. We were able to talk and learn from each other. We were able to use notebooks where we could sketch and label and take our own notes instead of filling in templates. He shared science videos, and then we had whole class discussions where I finally felt like I was being a part of the discussion and my voice was being heard. He brought volleyball concepts to the science classroom. He brought science concepts out to the volleyball court. He took time to build relationships, to make connections, and engage us as learners. But when I got to high school, I didn't have a Mr. Kulik in my life, and I struggled. It was my sophomore year when Senora Frauling called me up to her desk after flunking another Spanish test, and she said, "What do you notice about this word Florida?" I said, "Nothing." And she pointed out that 2 of the letters were flip-flopped on it, and I knew I should have known better because I drank out of that orange Florida mug every single day at breakfast. But nothing was done. I continued to go through high school struggling. Even my senior year, I flunked English out of all the subjects because I couldn't spell the words correctly each week on the spelling test. They let me walk through high school graduation. I received a blank diploma, and I wasn't even allowed to tell my grandma that I didn't graduate. No one knew. But I went to summer school, passed, and that's where I met my second mentor, Coach Russ Rose. Russ Rose, he's the Penn State women's volleyball coach, 7-time national championship winner, 40 years of coaching volleyball at that school. And he exhibits grit day in and day out. He models it for his players, and he expects it from them. And when I got there, we had our first sit-down meeting, and he said, "Bird," because that's my nickname, he said, "I have 2 expectations for you. 1, that you win every sprinting drill from now till the end of the year, until when you graduate. And 2, that you make all academic Big Ten honors every single season." And I thought the first was possible. I was quick, but the second one seemed impossible for me. He didn't know I couldn't read, but he set the bar high for me, and I knew that was my job. That was my role on the team. So I went to every class. I listened to every lecture. I took the notes the best that I could. I went down to a store called Nittany Notes. I bought the notes. I rewrote them, boxed them, circled them on bright paper. And it was those strategies I developed that I share with my students today. And it was the expectations he held for me where I was able to earn all academic Big Ten honors every single season. And 20 years later, I finally got up to Penn State and was sharing this story with a friend. He said, "You need to go talk to Coach. You need to share this story with him so pivotal in your life, and you have to go up and tell me. He's like, he's going to cry. He's like, Coach is going to cry when you tell him this story. So I finally got up and got up enough confidence to be able to share with him I was never able to read in college. And that he changed my life. I was able to go to college, get my master's degree in reading and writing, where I was able to teach myself how to read. And I wanted to thank him. And I got up there, and I sat at his desk, and I told him this, and he shoved a stack of books in front of me, and he said, better late than never. Right? I mean, I was expecting him to cry or say something, and he just raised the bar for me. Again, that's what he did. So I knew that was my job. So when I hopped on a plane back to California, I knew I had to continually put myself in situations where I was going to fail again to be able to eventually succeed and share those moments with my students. And that's exactly what I did. I came back, I finished writing my book. I even said yes to a podcast for the California Teachers Summit, where I failed miserably the first one. You can see the flashcards I put there on fluorescent paper and writing my notes, and I tried my best, but it just didn't come out well at all. So I called up the gentleman and said, may I redo this? And he said, yes, you're an athlete, you're a competitor, I like this, you can redo this. And then the second thing I did was I took my NSCA Certified Personal Trainer exam, which I knew I've been training for years. I knew the content, but trying to navigate a textbook that big was difficult. I flunked my 3-hour exam the first time I took it. Then I thought back to Mr. Kulik and those kinesthetic lessons he taught me. So I need to hop on a plane. I hopped on the plane, flew to Colorado Springs headquarters, and did three days of hands-on training, using fat helpers to test our friends, bench press to look at the mechanics, and then I was finally able to pass that test. So we need to share these stories with our students. We need to incorporate these kinesthetic lessons for those people that may not be able to read or might be learning differently. So we ultimately need to be more like Mr. Kulik and incorporate those kinesthetic lessons in our classrooms, not just at the end of a unit, but every single day. 2, we need to exhibit grit as teachers. So those moments when you want to quit, you personally need to keep going and share those stories with your students, because they need to have those reference points to think, wow, aren't I glad I didn't quit in those situations? And finally, we need to be the ones cheering our students on as we set the bar higher for them and for ourselves, for them to achieve more. Our students are dynamic learners, and we need to meet their needs by being dynamic teachers. So the next time you want to give up, quit, never try again, I want you to remember that these are the exact situations that develop grit. Aren't you glad you didn't quit for both you and your students?